Hey guys, Technomentary with a video for you guys. In today's video, we're going to be comparing the iPhone 12 Pro with the iPhone 11 Pro. It's probably the most exciting review out there because these phones are the flagship phones from Apple and they go head to head against the all specs for iPhone current day market. And we're going to take a look at it and whether or not if it's worth upgrading from the 11 Pro to the 12 Pro in 2021. In this comparison, we're going to look at everything you need to know between these two phones, the similarities and the differences, and whether that upgrade really makes sense or not. But before we go ahead and get started with today's video, if you guys are new to our channel, we do a lot of tech news reviews and giveaways. Also, if you guys are looking to buy one of these phenomenal devices at a discount rate, make sure you guys check out the link in the description section. So let's go ahead and get started with this review. As you can see here, we have a space gray iPhone 11 Pro. As you see right off the bat, the box of the 11 Pro, as you see here, is much bigger than the iPhone 12 that we have here, slimmed down version. So that's probably the first biggest thing. Whenever you see these devices, Apple went from having these big huge boxes to smaller boxes, and one of the main reasons why that happened is because Apple decided to go ahead and remove that wall adapter and the headphones from its packaging, hence why you get something smaller, because Apple has removed that. So that's probably one of the biggest complaints you probably heard around, is that the iPhone 12 doesn't have any of that anymore, where the iPhone 11 used to have that, hence why the box's size has been reduced. But let's move away from that and let's really talk about the phone itself. So as you see here, I have the space gray edition of the iPhone 11 Pro in my hand, and then we're going to take out the iPhone 12 Pro here from this box. This is the gold edition of the iPhone 12 Pro. If you guys haven't checked out or unboxing of the iPhone 12 Pro Gold Edition, make sure you guys check that video out, where we go in depth with all of the changes on the 12 Pro that you might notice and what we thought about the iPhone 12 Pro overall. So as you see here, both of the phones, as you see, if you look at it just at a glance, looks about similar in terms of a lot of the things. You have those triple lens here, as you see on these phones, and then also you'll notice sort of this bigger black dot. That's actually the LiDAR. That's part of the feature of the iPhone 12 Pro, which really does enhance the photography, photo depth, and augmented reality on the iPhone 12 Pro. And then the iPhone 11 Pro does have both of that as well. So as you see here, both of the phones, we'll first take a look at the actual design of the body. If you take a look at the body itself of both of these phones, if you put these boxes aside, you'll notice that the design of both of these phones at a quick glance is that there's been a whole redesign. After the iPhone 10, there hasn't been much change to the body, but here with the iPhone 12 lineup, there is sort of this newer design. Well, not quite newer, because Apple actually had this same bezel design around the edges on the iPhone 7, and Apple decided to bring that design back. So that was a surprising move compared to the iPhone 11, which you have these rounder edges here. So the iPhone 12 Pro does feel a little bit thicker. It's more sort of it's a little bit lighter than the 11 Pro, it feels like, but around that is both of them weigh about the same. The other thing you'll notice here is that there's a difference in terms of screen size. You might not notice it if you hold it side by side, but actually the iPhone 12 Pro does have a 6.1 inch screen versus the 5.8 on the iPhone 11 Pro. So there's been a 0.3 increase of the screen itself, but both of the phone does have that OLED technology, so the actual technology hasn't changed on it, but the glass actually did. So the iPhone 12 Pro does have this ceramic glass that's supposed to be 4 times tougher than the iPhone 11 Pro. So is that going to really make a difference? We're not quite sure, but that's something Apple has mentioned quite often on its review, is that you have the ceramic glass, which is supposed to be more durable and scratch resistance as well. And if you'll take a look at the bottom here, as you see, there hasn't been really much change to the bottom speakers. As you see, they have about the same number of speakers and that port up top. And then on the top here, as you see, the design, same thing here. And then the other noticeable piece is that on the iPhone 11 to 12 is that Apple moved the actual SIM card tray from one side to another. So on the iPhone 11, it used to be on the right hand side, and for most of the previous generation has been the case, but starting with the 12 Pro, Apple moved the SIM card tray on the left side here. And why is that? Why would Apple remove the SIM card completely to a different side? Well, there's one reason. It's because the iPhone 12 Pro, which for its most notable feature, the 5G was introduced, and the 5G antenna needed to make some room for it on the actual phone without making it any bigger or bulkier. So Apple decided to move the SIM card tray on the left side from the right side so they can place that 5G antenna. And this is available in the US market and select other countries. So most we've seen is that the 5G, it's still something new for a lot of carriers, but it is coming to light, and we'll see a lot more of that later down the line. So let's see these phones in action. So if you realize that between these phones, there is not really much going on in terms of the body. Of course, there's some changes to the body, but a lot after that is we have to talk about the actual internal of these two devices. So what has changed between two devices? So one thing to note is that with every new iPhone release, Apple likes to update the chip it runs on. So the iPhone 11 Pro runs on A13 chip versus the iPhone 12 Pro, which runs on the 14 chip. So there's been a slight increase in performance because of the upgraded chip. The other factor is the actual RAM. So the RAM is something people don't talk about a lot, but this really does impact the performance of the phone overall if you really run some tests. So the iPhone 12 Pro has 6 gig versus the iPhone 11 Pro, which has 4 gig. So almost 2 gigs more in terms of the RAM of this newer phones, and hence there's been some performance tests we've seen. There has been 20% performance boost on the iPhone 12 Pro. Certainly, does that really be something that you'll notice if you're a regular user? Probably not. It's something you'll notice when you really start multitasking. That's for heavy users that are playing games, multitasking between different actions that they're taking on the phone, opening up different applications. You might notice a difference, but even astonishingly, from 4 gig to 6 gig RAM, from A13 to A14 on the 12, that 20%, are you going to really notice it? At the surface level, you might not notice it, but at the higher end level, you might notice a bit of it. And let's talk about the storage of these phones, which is another part internally, because with Apple phones, you're not able to actually upgrade the storage by yourself. So you can't put an SD card or anything like that to buy storage from the cloud if you're looking for more storage. And what's happening with the iPhone, this is where the price point comes in between these phones. So the iPhone 11 Pro, the price has dropped between a couple $100, so you can actually get it probably around $700 or so currently. If you look around, make sure you guys check out the link in the description, as we mentioned, to some of the discounted phones. The iPhone 11 Pro is discounted right now since it's been a year old since it's been released. The iPhone 12 Pro starts at that price tag that Apple loves, is that $999 price tag. And depending on where you live in the US, there's also the tax that you have to pay. So in some cases, you're bumping up to almost $1,000, mid $1,000 to almost $1,100 for the base model. The base model, one thing Apple I like that they did this year is that they increased the base storage, which Apple doesn't do quite often. They went from 64 gig, which is the base on the iPhone 11 Pro, to 128 gig on the iPhone 12 Pro. So 128 gig It's not a lot compared to some of the newer other smart flagship phones out there, but 128 gig from 64 is definitely an upgrade for their base model. And you're able to actually get this in also 256 gig like you can with the iPhone 11 as well, but the price increased to $1099, and then the top of the line up is your 512 gig model, which comes at a $1299 price tag. So as you go up in the price, you get more storage out of it. Of course, you're able to get probably the 512 gig under $1,000 on the 11 Pro. And if you're looking for maybe something cheaper, the 11 Pro comes in terms of storage itself. So as you see here, we really talk about the internals of the phone and how it compares. Of course, the one thing when you talk about iPhones that you can't really get away from is the fact of its photography camera. As you see here, both of the cameras, the phone does have triple lens camera, so 12 megapixel lens on both sides of these phones. The only difference between is, as we mentioned really in the beginning of it, is that LiDAR technology that really enhances autofocus and true depth of the actual image you're taking. So you're going to notice that a little bit. In terms of video recording, the one noticeable thing is that both phone does record 4K. So if you wanted to record 4K, you're actually able to record at 60 frames per second on both phones, no issue whatsoever. The only big differences between these phones is that on the 12 Pro, Apple has mentioned that it has Dolby Vision HDR technology, so you can actually record a movie like they do in cinematic quality on the 12 Pro. So a little bit more improvement like Apple likes to do, but not quite as much as you would expect, but there has been improvements. We are still wondering how Apple is going to update, maybe possibly getting into the 120 frames per second. That might be more of an upgrade for it. And let's talk a little bit more about the phone itself. In terms of the software performance, both of these phones, of course, are running iOS 14. Of course, the iPhone 12 starts with iOS 13 and now upgraded to iOS 14. And most popular apps, as you see here, are available on both of these phones. No issues whatsoever with iOS 14. Things like the app widget and back tap has become mainstream and a lot more user-friendly, just making the phone more accessible and usable overall. And you're going to notice that these features of the phone makes these phones pretty much good. And if you really want to get most out of it, the other aspect you really have to talk about with the iPhone is the battery life. So how well are the battery life head to head with these two phones? Well, we're going to talk about battery life in terms of actually video playback. That's a metric that most smartphones are compared against in terms of their battery life. So what's happening between these phones is that they have pretty much equivalent battery life, except surprisingly, iPhone 11 Pro has 1 hour more video playback than the iPhone 12 Pro. Shocking, kind of, that Apple didn't quite improve its battery life. So if you're looking from upgrading from the iPhone 11 Pro for 12 Pro solely on the purpose of the battery life, well, there's a surprise in there for you. It actually doesn't have better battery life. So battery life between the 11 Pro and the 12 Pro, Apple hasn't done much aside that it loses 1 hour of battery life. And we suspect that with the 5G antenna coming in play, if you're going to be using the 5G feature, actually the battery might drain a little bit faster, because to utilize 5G cellular connectivity, you're going to have the phone working more on the CPU and the RAM of it, which could actually impact the battery life overall. We haven't tested that out, but that's something to really take a look at it. So taking our final comparison between iPhone 11 Pro and the 12 Pro is that there's a couple of things we want to mention. Is that the iPhone 12 Pro is clearly better phone than the iPhone 11 Pro, but the difference between these phones, there isn't much between it. So the most notable probably feature we mentioned throughout the video is that it does have that 5G antenna and then slight bit of hardware in terms of RAM and chip improvement, but to a normal user, that's not something that you'll notice. So if you're looking to upgrade from the 11 Pro, 12 Pro, you're not really getting much out of it. Really, if you think about how much Apple is charging for it between these phones, there's not much Apple has done to improve it besides just giving a new fresh body to the 12 Pro and just making slight improvement so ever so on the camera and just the overall phone itself, just making it a little bit more durable in terms of the ceramic glass design that Apple has released with a little bit bigger screen size, 0.3 if you want it to be accurate technically on the 12 Pro. But aside those main differences between the iPhone 11 Pro and the 12 Pro, of course the 12 Pro will get 1 year more iOS support than the 11 Pro. That's because the iPhone 11 Pro was released 1 year before the iPhone 12 was released, and with time, these phones, both of them for sure will last you for 5 years at the minimum, if not longer. 5 years just in terms of just basic support and usability. We don't expect any sort of issue whatsoever. So to answer the question between whether it's not worth upgrading or not, probably not worth the upgrade. But hey, if you have that money to spend, you're looking to get a little bit of performance boost, a little bit of screen size, getting that 5G because your carrier supports 5G, you test out 5G and slight improvement in camera, 12 Pro might be worth it for you. But for us, we don't think there has been much change in terms of the hardware or the software between this phone, as both of these phones can pretty much do most of the same computing, multitasking at the same amount of speed ever so slightly without much of a difference. So that's our review between the iPhone 12 Pro and the 11 Pro. Hopefully this video was helpful for anyone looking to compare or upgrade between these phones or looking for a review of it. We want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about the iPhone 12 Pro versus the iPhone 11 Pro? What do you guys see being the main differences and similarities? And what do you guys think about upgrading from one to another? Do you guys think it's worth it if you have upgraded? And what phone you're currently using? Leave all that in the comment section and we can see what you guys think. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this video was helpful. If this video is helpful, please make sure the like button, subscribe button. See you guys next time.